Welcome to the Art Against Mental Illness podcast. My name is Alex Lovelace and this is my podcast about the healing powers of art for artists, art lovers, the art curious and anyone with an interest in mental health and well-being. I've taken to recording pretty much any thought that comes into my head, and that includes when I'm wandering around my studio working on artworks and thinking about things and getting ideas and so I've got a few of these recordings, and I thought maybe I'd share them as a bit of an insight into my creative process and how I think about things in real time. This particular one seems quite relevant to various of the subjects I've covered in recent months, including process, flow states, mindfulness and various other things, and I give a bit of insight into my actual working processes and materials that I use, and this is really what my brain does when I'm engaged in the creative process. It was recorded using my headphone mic, so the sound quality isn't amazing. Somewhere in the middle of it, I had to cut out a whole bit where I used a hairdryer, and therefore you couldn't hear me at all, and I don't really know what I was thinking, talking over a hairdryer. There's lots of sort of shushing sounds, which is me using my spray bottle to wet the canvas that I'm working on. So I hope you can ignore those and you can hear what I'm saying and you find this interesting. See you again soon for a proper episode. One of my favourite things to do is to use a combination of water and acrylic inks and drip them, splash them and let them flow across the canvas. And I say it like it's one of my favourite things to do as a technique. I really love the effects that it makes, but also I really love watching it. It's enthralling watching colours mix and merge and take unexpected paths across a canvas. And sometimes I'll have done something to the canvas to encourage that. Sometimes I just let the inks and the water do their work. So I'll drip some water in a certain drip some ink in a certain place, or maybe I'll wet the canvas first in places, then I will drip some ink in various bits and usually sort of angle the canvas and let it drip, but only a slight angle because I don't want it to drip down too fast. And what I like is that as it drips, it leaves a sort of trail of much thinner liquid behind it, and that sort of dries at a different rate, and you know, as a colour drips down the canvas, it often merges with other colours that I put on there, and so you get organic mixing of colours as it traverses the canvas, creating little trails of ephemeral pigment. And then when it dries, it has a sort of like what like you see with watercolour around the edges. You get these little concentrated hard edges that I find absolutely beautiful and enthralling. I think watercolour is a little bit too delicate for my sensibilities and my general approach, so I don't do a lot of it, but I spend a fair amount of time trying to achieve the sort of same effects as you can get on watercolour with acrylic paints on canvases, and sometimes I win, sometimes I don't. It's even better when you've got some texture on the canvas. That could be some collage, but it could also be like I've got some modelling gel on here that's been dried, some of it quite thick in various sort of semi-organic patterns, and the paint is finding its way in and through the grooves. I'm finding strange paths, strange organic paths down the canvas. Obviously it's falling down in the ridges between the paint strokes, leaving the sort of pattern to emerge. As it slowly drips down, the paint, the inks run out of momentum and they start to dry up, so I spray a bit more sort of towards the top, which allows more of the more ink to flow down. And maybe if it's getting very light, I'll add a bit more ink. Well, I try not to get involved with where the paint is going, because I often think that nature's a better artist than I am and I should just stop meddling. But I find it hard to do so. I find this process so mindful and generally just sort of absorbing and fascinating. And I'm no expert on fluid dynamics or anything like that, but maybe I should be. Maybe I need to find out more so I can create some more fun with these canvases. Yeah, it's hard not to meddle. But then you do meddle, like I'm doing right now, which I really shouldn't be. And sometimes it makes things better, sometimes it makes it worse, but most times it's acrylic paint, so you can just paint over it and start again and use what you've created to, create somewhat of a different effect sometimes. Or, I don't like to throw things away, and I don't like to waste beautiful things that are beautiful organic patterns that have been created on a canvas. My phone's got quite a good macro lens on it, so I sometimes get close-up photos of these little creations, although it's quite hard to do given the lighting. So right now I've got this abstract piece that I'm allowing the paint to find its way down. Some of it's exactly what I was hoping, and some of it isn't. And you sort of have to take a decision, lots of little decisions on the fly as to, how to react to that. But I'm not averse to playing around a bit, and especially since I didn't know where this was going anyway. I'm not too bothered if it goes a bit weird. And also, as I do this, I get ideas. I try and create a fair amount of chaos around me at any given point in time, because then I do something like this and something different happens to what usually happens, because I've treated the canvas slightly differently, or different pattern, different mediums, and so on. And so something happens, and maybe it doesn't suit this particular piece, but I can then use that, or use what I learned from this to create something new and interesting. It doesn't always work. It's not always profitable, but I think the other thing I've got going on here is that since I don't really know how to conceive of abstract paintings, letting nature do its thing gives me hints and points directions for me into how to progress and try different things. And this is sort of the same way that I use like my AI and neural network to sort of ideate for me, as well as create artworks. So sometimes I'm like, oh, I really wish you'd point in this direction, and I'll try and give it a little bit of help. I've got to be careful, because sometimes, be careful what you wish for. There you go. I've got a little stream going down here now. That's beautiful. Look at that. That's amazing. One of the main problems with this approach is that because it's quite wet, the paints are wet and the inks are wet, some of the patterns that emerge as it's flowing pretty much dissipate as you let it dry, because the paints just continue to sort of mix into each other, even if you lie it down flat. And it's a bit of a shame, but I've tried various ways to fix these beautiful patterns, and one obvious way is to try and dry it, use a hairdryer or something, and it's going to move the paint around, which is not what I want. I sort of let nature do its thing. One of the things that what this is doing at the moment, which is something I'm sort of less fond of, is that it's not symmetrical, and I like things to be even. It doesn't have to be symmetrical. It just has to have. I like things to be balanced. Bit of a yin and yang thing. It does occur to me that creating things that are unbalanced, if it gives the viewer a slightly uncomfortable feeling, then in some ways that's mission accomplished. But I have to like the things that I make, because that's how I know when they're finished. And when things are out of kilter, when they're not balanced, I very much struggle to ignore that. Um, so I always end up meddling because it's like an itch you got a scratch, or like a stain on the carpet or something that just bugs you. It's irritating. I don't want that there. I'm going to go and clean it off. And so that's what happens. I meddle. And sometimes that's for the better, and sometimes it's really, really not. And who knows where this one's going to go, but I'm lacking a bit of balance here. But I guess one way to approach that is that, you've got a bit of unbalance going on this side, that you can try and coerce it to create a bit more weight down the other side to even it out a bit. And that's what I'm going to do now. There's a nice little ridge here that I can see if I can get this paint to drip down. Yeah, balance is important to me, even though I don't suppose I lead a particularly balanced life, but I think my autistic brain likes order. It likes things to be in the right place. I think part of that is symmetry and balance, and I'm fine with that. But it can get a bit annoying, feeling like I have to always make things just so. But then also, my autistic brain likes weird stuff. I like strange compositions. As long as they feel balanced to my brain, maybe no one else can see what I think of as balance, but um, I can see it. So now I just sprayed this with some really dark, gloomy, blacky, bluey, browny colour, and it's dulled everything down, and I don't think I have a problem with that, because I quite want this piece to be quite dark, whatever it is. So I'm sort of okay with that. But then, I'll probably come in tomorrow, see what it looks like, and think to myself, yeah, that's not staying like that. And then just paint it all out and start again. I've done that so many times. But then it sort of gives you opportunities to experiment some more. And I know that's one of the reasons I work with acrylic paints, is so you can just scratch it and start again. I'm good with that, as long as I'm not throwing away things that are actually good. Then I'm fairly easy with this stuff. And really, as I always bang on about anyway, it's all about the process anyway, for me. And therefore, strictly speaking, if I paint stuff out and start again, then it's two for the price of one. Just got to be careful just not to get rid of stuff that people might actually like and might want to buy. I've got a preference for building things up in layers, even if it doesn't actually fundamentally agree with my constitution. I like the effects you can get by putting lots of glazes on, because the colours underneath shine through, and it gives really complex, unpredictable, and quite beguiling effects, rather than just sort of mixing fields of colour. This bit's got to be green and this bit's got to be blue. I like to sort of create an illusion of depth of lots of colours, because that's what the world around us looks like. There's no such thing as a thing that's just blue. It's reflecting all sorts of colours. It's just primarily blue, and it all depends on how much sheen or gloss it's got on it, and the shade of blue, and of course if it's blue, it's the color that it's reflecting most of, which means the one thing it isn't is blue. It's every other color. And so I sort of I like to try and reflect the fact that, excuse the pun, that everything is all the colors, and there's always any surface that you go and look at, be it a tabletop or someone's skin, on their face or their hands. It's all different colours, all reflecting lots of different things. And I like to accentuate those colours. I like to celebrate colour. So my works tend to be quite vibrant, for the better or for the worse. Anyway, that's probably enough for now.